Get ready and strap in for the One Love HTX show, where all our conversations are always raw, unfiltered, and never staged. We can also be found on Instagram, all major streaming platforms, and westcliff.org. Check us out at onelovehtx.org for more info or ways to support the show. Now get ready to dive into conversations you won't always have in church with your hosts, Joshua Duffy and Daniel Salsi.
Well, I know that it said your hosts, Joshua Duffy and Daniel Salsi, but Joshua's not here today. So it's just me. He is out right now with family. We've got a special guest today. So he told me to go ahead, handle it on my own, and he'll jump in on the next ones we have coming up. So we're running close to finishing out our fourth season. Just want to thank everybody out there for being a part of the One Love HTX podcast and westcliff.org, westcliffclimb.org. And also those supporting Pilgrim Church in Houston that Duffy is a part of. So if you need a little church you want to go to or need any other type of help, it's all on our website, www.onelovehtx.org. You go down the bottom, you'll see our partners. We have churches in there so you can find in your area. We have different types of ministries that you might be looking for help, mental health or abuse, anything. We try to partner up with a lot of people. So hope you'll utilize those and check out some cool churches and cool places that can help out. So today we have a special guest. I'm going to bring him on in just a second, but it's a really interesting guest because when I met him, before I met him, I heard about him from a friend that I just met. And the friend was a pastor of a church who became a friend. I had been told for 18 years that I needed to meet this pastor, and I just never did it. And then finally one day I met him. He starts telling me about this really cool guy, but he's not here right now. But one day you're going to get to meet him. And he was out on an archaeological dig or something. So then later on, this guy shows up at the church. I meet him, but I think he's the music director. And then all of a sudden I find out that this is the archaeologist and the guy that was out in the archaeology dig that I needed to meet, who was also a huge POD fan, but we're going to get into that. So without further ado, I want to bring on Jordan McClinton. Did I say that right, McClinton?
You said it right, man. Yep.
For some reason, I keep wanting to say McClintock. So
I know. My whole life, man, I've had McClintock. I'm not John Wayne, but I do, sometimes give a little John Wayne vibes, but yeah.
It's funny. For years, even to this day, I had to change my name in real estate. I went as just the mustache man for a long time. I had this huge curly mustache.
Nice.
Because every time I introduced myself, no one could remember the name Daniel, and I don't understand it.
Yeah.
I would say Daniel, and then next thing I knew, I'd see him. It's Dennis. It's Darren. I'm like, forget it.
Yeah, I respond to any J name. So I get Justin, I get Jeremy, Joshua. Jordan. Yeah.
It's a blessing and a curse, right?
Yeah, man.
So, well, cool. So thank you for coming out and being a part of this podcast. I'm really excited about it. And I want to start off this way. As you kind of heard my intro, one of the things that really struck me when I talked to Pastor Clint was he said he knew you as originally as one of his youth in his youth group.
Yeah.
And I think you were a drummer. You're still a drummer. That didn't go away. But he wanted you to do some worship songs or whatever. You ended up doing a POD song. Is that right?
We've done some POD stuff, some old school Delirious. Yeah. But, this was like the mid to late 90s, right? Worship music was kind of starting to shift a bit, kind of into more of an alternative scene, I guess. And so it really, our band at that time, we were kind of a garage band that kind of shifted into our youth worship band. And we threw in some cool stuff here and there, some POD riffs. And we kind of, brought that. And that was really kind of my story of getting saved. Music was such a huge part of that, kind of getting out of the, I mean, I was unsaved, just out of that scene,
Right.
and the Lord just merged it beautifully with the type of music that I was listening to, and yeah, I mean, Christian, heavy metal, rock, alternative was such a huge part of that for me.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. I could never stay with the norm. You know,
Yeah,
I,
same.
I, I loved KSBJ and the local radio station stuff, but it was never hard enough for me because I came from heavy metal myself. So I was kind of finding that. So I fell into. I remember finding Thousand Foot Crutch.
Oh yeah,
Oh my goodness, that was an incredible one, and just several other ones, and of course POD for years, and now they're a part of the Whosoever's and One Love HTX, everything that we do. But it's funny, 20 years later, I'll meet people and they're like, "Dude, did you know that POD, that song Satellite, is about God?" And I'm like, "Yeah,
a little bit.
yeah." So that's awesome. So cool. So what age? Just kind of going back into history a little bit. What age did you come to know uh, God, Christ?
I was about 15. I think it was the summer of my 15th year. Yep, and the Lord just got a hold of me. I was searching. I mean, I was rebellious certainly as a kid and as a teenager, and yeah, my parents kind of forced me to go to church. Started like forcing me to go to this choir, um, you know, Sunday night thing at our church that I hated, and would force me to go to Wednesday night our youth
Choir. That
ministry.
could be like choir could be like if you're
Yeah,
rebellious, you're like, those are nerds,
I
man.
know, totally. But the Lord works in all sorts of places, man, and just started chipping away at my heart and softening it. And I mean, I knew I was searching for something, and I tried all sorts of things, right? And I really found such an identity in the type of music that I was listening to and the people that kind of came along with that. And really, it was the summer before my freshman year in high school, and the Lord just radically changed my life. I got saved, just a 180-degree turn,
Wow.
and really, I remember coming home to my mom, and because she hated like the black, I'm wearing a black T-shirt, but like I was always wearing black and the flannel shirts and the combat boots and the Pantera
Oh,
Metallica
you're my
shirts.
guy. You're my
Yeah,
guy.
and I went home and I was like, Mom, I figured it out. Like I'm going to reach that sort of person, but like I'm still going to wear the flannels and the combat boots and the ripped jeans but just like I'll wear a Christian T-shirt now. And she didn't really like that originally, but because
Yeah.
I think she wanted me to completely switch my identity or
You're like,
kind of like,
Pantera needs Jesus too, mom.
yeah, yeah. And so that's kind of how I've been. Just probably very similar to you. And you and I have talked, and I think we have similar backgrounds and similar stories.
Yeah.
But just the Lord's always kind of brought me into this world of reaching a different type of person. Maybe the disenfranchised Christian that, or someone who is searching, but maybe they don't necessarily fit into this perfect
Right.
church mold. And I know
Yeah.
you've been to our church. I mean, that's kind of what we're about at
Yeah.
our church here in Katy.
Such a warm feeling there. Such an
Yeah,
amazing feeling, everyone. So okay, so that ninth grade, I mean, that's young because there's a lot of influence going on around you
sure.
that could definitely stop that. I know mine didn't happen. Mine happened very, very young, second grade, and then I just split because I didn't have good discipleship. And then, of course, by that age, when you say ninth grade, I was so far into it that it was difficult to get out of it.
Yeah.
So the reawakening didn't come till later. So in ninth grade, what was your thought? I mean, I know at that time that people are trying to figure themselves out. Did you ever think you were going to become an archaeologist? Was that even on the map, or were you thinking
No.
something?
No, yeah, I mean, you could even go back to a decade from now, 10 years ago, and ask me if I was gonna be an archaeologist. I'd probably look at you crazy. It was just not something I was necessarily, that thought was even possible, right? I mean, I'm in my mid-40s now, and so, um, you know, doing something later in life, a lot of people maybe get stuck in this place where they think they're stuck, and I wish I would have done this when I was a kid or whatever. But truly stepping out into faith, that the Lord's going to lead you, and if He opens up a door, it's been my life mantra, I guess. Lord, Lord, if you want me to step into something, I'm available, right? I'm
Right.
here. Um, uh, you know,
Yeah.
I'm available, and so
So
He
you
opened up.
went into the church first and then archaeology, or what?
Yeah, yeah. So I guess just to back up a little bit, I mean, I've been in ministry for a little over 15 years,
Wow.
and so let's see, gosh, it was actually 2010 is when I really started kind of stepping into more leadership role at our church. I've
Mhm.
always been in worship, like as you mentioned. I started playing drums. I
Right.
moved to kind of playing acoustic guitar and leading songs, and then I think it was 2012. I was ordained as a pastor at our church,
Okay.
and officially became the worship pastor, leading
Okay.
our team, leading our worship ministry, um, and kind of going that direction. And then about 8 years ago or so, the Lord opened up an opportunity for me to go and further my education. So I have an undergrad in computer information systems, so it's like a business degree in technology. And so I knew at some point I wanted to be trained in the Bible a little bit more. I've read the Bible my whole life, but if I'm going to be a pastor, and just wanted to get a little bit more formal training. So found this amazing school here in Katy called the Bible Seminary,
Uh-huh.
and my first year, or before I even really started, I took a trip to Israel, which really kind of like solidified this land of the Bible. I'll call it an obsession for me. I got the bug, and then when I started at the school here, we have a master's degree of biblical history and archaeology, and so I started that program in 2018, and got my master's degree, and then decided, okay, what am I going to do with that? Um, I can obviously I've got knowledge and I can speak and talk about it, but if I really wanted to impact the world a little bit more with writing, researching, teaching, then I needed to go the doctoral route. I was already kind of in taking classes, the mode of like a 40-year-old, taking college classes, graduate classes, and then the Lord again opened up an opportunity for me to roll into a PhD program, and so I'm now 75% done with that. I'm
Wow.
at the dissertation stage of that, and so by the end of 2026, I should have defended and finished with my PhD dissertation. So
Wow.
yeah, it was quite the journey.
Yeah. A lot of fun there. And
Yeah,
it's
man.
funny you mentioned Israel and going out there. My wife and I went. We actually went separate times because we were concerned that if we went together, uh, we went on a pretty brutal hike
Hmm.
through all of the Holy Land and everything. And I think we did like 80 miles or 100 and something miles. It was
Yeah,
something crazy that they
yeah,
said, be prepared. We had to train for it, but
yeah.
we were concerned that we were going to be a hindrance to each other, watching out for each other. So I went alone, she went alone. And I was told, I remember this, someone said, what you know about Israel, what you know about, all that area is black and white right now. Truly black and white, and maybe some red. He said, but when you go there, it's going to make everything technicolor, and
Yeah.
it's just crazy what happened and how the Bible stories come to life after that, and you can see where they were happening, what was going on, and just
100.
amazing.
Yeah,
So
and that's really what really inspired me. I mean, I've always understood the Bible, at least from my own understanding, right? And as here in 2020, what year is it? 2025, right? We read with our English speaking eyes, Western mindset. I always knew I was missing some element. I understood the Bible, and it's an important concept. I mean, anyone can pick up the Bible and read it, at face
Right.
value. I mean, this is the beauty of the living word, is that we should be able to understand it. And people have done, so much work over the centuries, translating and helping us, get the right translation into English. But still, there's an element of understanding the context of the Bible, what it meant to the individuals that lived it, that actually lived these lives. And I knew I was missing a bit of that, and that's really what brought me into the study of the Holy Land, the land of the Bible, the
Yeah.
material culture of the people that lived that life. Because it really does, as you mentioned, it brings it into Technicolor. It takes it from 2D to 3D. I mean, we read these things throughout the Bible, and sometimes we just gloss over them because maybe they don't make sense to us, or we
Yeah.
just we just read it. But if we understood the context of some of these things, in geographic context, in cultural, or what's going on around them,
Yeah.
the type of materials that they're using. It doesn't change the biblical text. It illuminates it for us. It
Yeah.
brings it to life, and it really helps us understand it here and now, like they did then and there.
Yeah. I think what really baffled me, and this is we're going to start getting into the meat here with what you're doing out there, what you've discovered or been a part of discovery. But what baffled me so much is you can see places like the Sea of Galilee. It hasn't gone away, and when I always heard the Sea of Galilee, I thought it was a stinking sea. And it's big, but it's a
Lake.
lake.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when the Bible talked about like Jesus, getting up early and getting away, from people, there was, I'm going to draw a blank, but there was a small, not small, but like a mountainish hill, that he would climb up to get away from everyone else and get early and get pray and all that kind of stuff. And we had to climb that too. And I was like, wow, that took some work because he's a rock star of the day. Like if people were awake and they saw him, I'm sure they were just like, they knew he could heal, he could do whatever. So he had to get away. And so, but what baffles me the most is when we would see literally layers of civilization.
Yeah.
That was like, okay, this is really odd because I live in Katy, Texas, and I don't have layers of civilization, but it looks like they just like demolished, built on top of, demolished, built on top. And it's just all this craziness. So we were there when I think they discovered the Pool of Bethsaida, or maybe it wasn't that.
The Siloam pool, the Pool of Siloam.
Is that the one where Jesus put the mud on the guy's face?
Yeah, that's the Pool of Siloam, and they've recently done new excavations there. Yeah, down there.
Okay, yeah. So we were there when that was happening, but it's really just crazy interesting. So to be a part of that, I couldn't imagine coming across something or going, "This is it." So let's start here. Start with, as you started doing this archaeology out there, what was the first whoa, and what's the newest whoa?
Well, there's a lot of woes, and honestly, there's a lot of moments where I step back and have to kind of pinch myself and say, like, oh my gosh, like, because you get stuck in the middle of just working. It's hard work.
Sure.
We're excavating. Our season is 4 weeks long. Sometimes it's surprising to people because they say, well, you only dig for 4 weeks out of the year, and that's true. But we hit it really hard for about a month, about 4 weeks, and so we're working hard. And sometimes you're as a supervisor, I supervise an area, and I supervise squares and volunteers. I get kind of in the weeds and the minutia of things and writing notes and updating my iPad. But to step back and look at the hills around me, and we get there in the morning and see the sunrise, and it's like, man, these are the same things that Joshua and the Israelites saw, or these early Israelites, because we're excavating. We'll talk about this here in a minute. We're excavating an early Israelite site, where the possible tabernacle and the sacrificial system and the priests all resided. And so, and particularly myself, this area that I'm excavating, it's remnants of the sacrificial system, where these people came every year to sacrifice constantly for the atonement of their sins. And they knew they were going to be back next year. And they knew that this was a temporary solution to a permanent problem that they had. And so I pick up these animal bones and look at them and think to myself, this is crazy. Like anybody else would look at this, just as, faunal remains of an animal or,
Yeah.
pottery from a civilization. But,
You see a story.
knowing what it means, right? And knowing that Jesus came to fulfill that atoning sacrifice forever, is truly pretty whoa, right? As you mentioned.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
cool. So, okay. So uh, first experience, what was it?
Well, so again, as I mentioned, first experience was going to the Holy Land and actually, seeing these sites and getting to, as you mentioned, just seeing the Bible come to life.
Yeah.
And then I guess my first excavation, this was in 2018, was at the site of Shiloh, and so I guess we can kind of pivot to Shiloh. So, um, um, this was well. Let me just give you a little bit of background. So, if you open up the book of First Samuel, this is they're at Shiloh right there. So, the story of Hannah and her husband Elkanah, they come to Shiloh. Hannah's she's barren. She can't have a child. She comes and prays at the house of the Lord, at the tabernacle, and God gives her a son. She names him Samuel. So Samuel's like our last kind of our last judge, our first prophet, kind of bridges
Yeah.
the gap between the period of the judges and the period of the kings. And he's raised at Shiloh. This is again where the tabernacle is, where it's really the first capital of Israel, where the priests, the priesthood, the early Levitical priests before they moved it to Jerusalem,
Right.
and the sacrificial system. And so, I guess my first excavation, I was a volunteer. I was digging in a gate complex, which is one of the main areas that we're excavating at. Yeah, and I just soaked it in, man. Just kind of we were uncovering an opening in a wall. So we had this massive
Yeah.
fortification wall there, and just investigating that. I mean, archaeology is a slow process.
Yeah.
So we're slowly uncovering things. I think we just finished our seventh season. Um, and that's been since 2018. And of course, we had a couple of years that we missed for
Yeah.
COVID. But that was my first
Wow.
excavation. Then I came back and did another project. Go ahead.
No, so what an experience, and I love what you were saying about how you can stand in these places and you look up and you know that this is what they were seeing too during that
Yeah,
time, the sunsets and the sunrises and what was happening, and that's just super super cool. Um,
yeah.
and with that, like, does this? I mean, just for our listeners, what does this do for your spirit of belief and just your walk with God? I mean, does it change it?
Yeah, it does. I mean, I tell people, there's archaeology is not necessarily, um, out to prove the Bible true. But as I mentioned, it helps us and it illuminates the
Yeah,
scripture, and it really does highlight, the historicity or the historical value that our faith really is rooted in, opposed to many other world religions where, most of it is mythology. I mean, even like the Greco-Roman, gods and goddesses, right? I mean, those those stories and those gods, they didn't
we
they
haven't
didn't
found
really
Zeus'
exist.
temple,
Yeah,
right?
we've never found Zeus. We found little statues of him, right? But he didn't really live. And
Yeah,
you can get into all sorts of other religions where it's we understand how mythology progresses, right? I mean, how stories evolve. Um, and a lot of critics will say, well, that's how the Bible is too, right? I mean, these stories of Moses and parting the sea and all of these things, and the miracles that Jesus, you know, it's difficult for one to prove that those things happened, but
mhm,
if we can show that the things around all of those miracles actually took place, right?
Yeah.
The events that took place, the people that are mentioned in the Bible. And I personally, I love the small little details, or maybe just a one-off individual that was like a assistant to a king or something like that.
Right.
He's mentioned one time in the Bible, right? And we find evidence that that person existed.
Yeah.
It's like you've got to work through it and like, okay, with those small little details were true,
Yeah.
then the big ones are, very likely to be true as well. And of course, it's I can't prove to you that that Jesus died on the cross for your sins.
Right.
But I can prove that, a man in the first century was crucified on a cross by the Roman Empire, and I can prove to you, extra biblically, not just in the Gospels. I mean, there's multiple historians that attested um, to that event, and
Yeah.
so, there's always going to be an element of faith that is required
Yeah.
in our belief, but it's not a dumb faith, right? We're
Yeah.
not blindly following these things because they were passed down for generations and generations. It's written in a very reliable text that can be historically and archaeologically shown to be true.
Right. Right. Yeah. So, okay, I'm going to put you on the spot here because this is, I've met you now. We heard your story. And actually, that's why, after hearing you at church one day speaking about this current find that we're going to talk about in just a second, it brought up some old thoughts. I've met other archaeologists through the years that have discovered Indian civilizations or dinosaur bones or whatever it is. And I heard something that was quite disturbing. And I think this is important because now in this day and age of information, and
Mm.
we're seeing it now more and more with everything, people are just they're becoming more aware. Now, whether it's true or not is another question, but
Yeah.
we're inundated with information constantly. And so one of the things that was said was uh, in a lot of these digs that they're finding, if the find is comparable or within the same genre or whatever it is of another find, it becomes very difficult for them to get funding. So
Mm.
a lot of times, and they said a lot of times, and this particular person said, I don't agree with it, but I'm in the group and I'm not in charge of it, but they will fudge the numbers of the years or whatever it is to make it different enough for someone to say, okay, we'll fund that because it's a new find when it really isn't. So it's thrown off so much of the what is real, what is not. And granted, these are different civilizations, these are dinosaur bones, but the datings and all these things are incorrect because of that. How is that protected? And hopefully, it's a little bit more in a dig like you guys are doing. And we want to think that
Yeah.
Christians are going to be a little more honest. So how is that protected? And does that get stopped if you find something that may have been found similar before? Or does that make
Um,
sense?
yeah, it does make sense. And so, and I don't, I'm not 100% in that world. I'm sure some of that goes on. I mean, unfortunately, money, drives a lot of things,
Yeah,
and particularly an archaeological dig, funding is important as well. I can tell you that we certainly don't do that in our
that's
excavation.
yeah, that's
And
what
I
I
think,
needed to hear.
yeah, and I
That's what I
think
needed that
most
answer.
people in our world, they're doing this for the right reasons, right? But again, I'm not sure. I mean, particularly, when it gets to dinosaur bones, and I'm certainly not a paleontologist, but I know,
Yeah,
there is a dating expectation that comes along with some of that stuff.
yeah,
That if you've been following some stuff in more of the creation side of things, there's a lot of problems with some of that dating, and there are some actual, um, you know, um, documented carbon-14 problems with some of that as well. And so, when you get into the world of academia and, public funding and universities, there certainly is a paradigm and a worldview that is pushed. I would hope that no one's doing anything, um, you know, below board or,
Sure.
completely unethically. But I can imagine. I will highlight. I mean, we are very fortunate in the work that we're doing, and so I'll just mention the organization that we dig with is called the Associates for Biblical Research.
Okay.
And so you can look us up. I think it's BibleArcheology.org, or you can just Google the Associates for Biblical Research. So we're a consortium of many organizations, universities, volunteer organizations, the Bible seminary that I went to school at, and adjunct. I'm an adjunct professor here. Is one of our largest groups that digs with us.
Yeah.
And so, we get funding from extra, from other areas. And so we're not necessarily tied into, you know, what we find, reflects what the money we pull
Right.
in. So, but
No,
people,
that's
people still challenge us on things, right? It's like, we'll talk here in a minute. Some of the big finds that we have, we feel that we are uncovering. They're like, there's no way, right? You guys
right.
haven't found that. And it's like we're not putting it there, right? I mean, there's always an element of interpretation that comes
Yeah.
along with archaeology. We're obviously interpreting things the way that we understand it, with the best information that we've got. But we're not placing these things in the ground. I mean, they're, we're doing scientific methodological archaeology, and we're interpreting what we find.
Yeah. Cool. It's okay. Perfect. I love that answer, and that I think listeners need to hear that a little bit more too, because again, it gets weird out there. But I love the fact that this is a heart thing. This is funded in a different way. It's not based on making a name for yourself and someone
Sure.
trying to get famous or whatever it is. This is love. This is passion,
Yeah.
which is very cool. So all right, so let's jump into this one. So this is I want to talk about the current one, the current dig that you've been on, and what was discovered, and then I got a couple of questions about it too. So
Okay.
tell us a little bit about it.
Well, I gave you a little bit of background of Shiloh, and so Shiloh, as I mentioned, is the location of the early tabernacle. So, just kind of timeline. We've got the Exodus has taken place. The Israelites are wandering for 40 years with Moses. They're setting up and tearing down this tabernacle or this tent.
Uh-huh.
At this point, it was a tent. This is where Moses met with God. This was, the place that God chose to make His name known, right? To
Yeah.
meet with His people. And so when they enter into the Promised Land, they start the initial conquest. Dating wise, this is around 1400 BC. So the 15th, the end of the 15th century. They settle at Shiloh. They're settling all over, and they're distributing some of the land, but they set up the tent at Shiloh. This is in the Central Hill Country, so it's about 26 or 30 miles north of Jerusalem. It's in the territory of Ephraim, kind of Ephraim and Benjamin right there.
Yeah.
And so when we started excavating, we had hoped, or we had kind of expected to find some remnants of this tabernacle or the priests that lived there, the sacrificial system that was taking place. And so we started to actually uncover things like altar horns, which is kind of a four-horned altar, which is this early. Well, they had four-horn altars throughout the biblical kings, but
Yeah.
this stone altar made with four horns, pomegranates, storage rooms, um, things that would connect to the priesthood there. And then I think it was 2019, we started to uncover this really large building. We would call it a monumental sized building.
Mhm.
And really, in antiquity, there's only a few things it could be. It's a palace, it's a temple, it's an administrative building. And being at Shiloh, we were quite interested, right? We knew that during this time period, there's not a massive settlement here.
Right.
There's priests that are living here, and so any large building like this is going to be, an important building that's possibly connected to the tabernacle. And
Yeah.
so we started to uncover these walls, corners of the walls started to appear, and we started to understand the dimensions of this building. As of last summer, 3 corners, and I think the fourth internal corner has been identified, which allows us to give the full dimensions of this building. And
Yeah.
from what we can see and interpret, it is the perfect dimension of the tabernacle mentioned in the biblical text, which is wild. It's the right time period. So we're talking about the Iron Age 1 period.
Right.
It's the dimensions and the proportions that the Bible mentioned that the tabernacle is.
Which is crazy because if I remember you correctly, you were talking when I first heard this. God gave Moses specific, you know, instructions and lengths and widths and everything, and that's what you're discovering. So
Yeah.
this wasn't, and I guess that's where some people who aren't well versed in this or looking to disprove might go, well, how do you know that's just not another temple? And it's not like today, like Lennar Homes or Perry Homes goes, okay, that's the temple model. Go do that over and over again.
Sure.
They weren't making these things, or following blueprints of how to do, except what God said. And that was to Moses. So that's
Yeah,
just
looks very different than other temples that you would find during that time period.
yeah,
It's 30 cubits is really the length, and it's split by 1/3 and 2/3. So 20 cubits was kind of the holy space, and the 10 cubits was the holy of holies. And we're seeing that partition there as well. And so, again, we're getting this like 2-to-1 ratio that's mentioned in the Bible. And people have argued it's like, and it's probably just from this is just too good to be true, right? Like, there's no way that you guys have uncovered the tabernacle. And our response is like, well, if it's not the tabernacle, then what is it, right? It's, we've got an identical building at Shiloh during the same time, the exact dimensions in this monumental sized building. It's either the tabernacle or it's an identical building that was built in the
right.
same time in the same place. It
Oh, that's
just,
a cool building. Let's redo that.
and as I mentioned, those altar horns, the pomegranates, the things that we would connect to the priests were found within it. And so,
Yeah.
um, you know,
So for the listeners, explain the pomegranates and things that you're talking about. Because
yeah,
when I heard you saying it, I'm thinking of, actual big Americanized pomegranates.
yeah, no, and so we have found three small pomegranates with like holes in them to be worn like as a necklace or to hang on something. And two of them made from ceramic, one of them made from like a faience, or like it's kind of a precursor to glass, almost like a bead. So
Yeah.
you would think, okay, what's a pomegranate, and how does that connect to the tabernacle? Well, if we read the Bible, the pomegranate was the only fruit or kind of icon that was allowed into the tabernacle. Even so much so, if you read in Leviticus, it says that on the hems of the robe of the priests, you have woven bells and pomegranates all throughout the robes. The bells would make sound as the priest would go into the Holy of Holies. But again, this pomegranate
It's like a
was,
little bit structure,
yeah,
the whole.
exactly. And so we found 3 of those in the area. So, it's not definitive proof, but
Yeah.
these are just little synchronizations that we're using. And this is what's important about archaeology. I think, as you mentioned at the beginning of this, we get stuck in our modern understanding of capturing events, right? Particularly, we've got our phones everywhere now, and like, if you didn't take a video of something or you didn't take a picture, then it didn't happen.
Right.
It's very different in antiquity. We're not finding, a graffiti that says, the prophet Samuel was here, or Jesus stood here or something.
Right.
We're having to interpret a lot of these things, but if you've got, again, like if you've got these synchronizations, like how many biblical synchronizations do you need to start to believe that the biblical text is a historical document?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
we've got thousands of them.
Right.
So that's our building, and then if you want, we can move kind of into the my most exciting area, which is a sacrificial deposit. And so,
Right. Hang on one second before you get
yeah,
into that, because I do want to hear about that. There's another piece that you mentioned that was very interesting. Trying to figure out, is this a temple, improving it, and all that kind of stuff. Gold.
mm,
You mentioned gold. That's not a normal, find of just leave this here. Tell us about that.
yeah, and that actually gets into this deposit. So yeah, to your point, gold was, I mean, obviously very valuable. It's valuable today because of its, how rare it is. And in antiquity, it was you just didn't lose gold. It was something that was, if you lost it, you went to find it. If you kept it and you sold it, you reused it, you melted it down. And so just east of this building, and so we've identified the door, or the opening of this monumental structure that we believe is the tabernacle, and is facing east, which again is another indication that this is it's a religious building, right? It's facing east. The temple in Jerusalem is facing east. It's a very, very
Standard.
ancient standard direction. If
Okay.
you walk right out the east side of this building, you will come to, it's called a favisa, or a sacrificial deposit. And so as they are sacrificing animals, they're bringing offerings, their grain offerings, drink offerings. They're burning these things on the altar of the Lord, and they're taking it and disposing of it ceremonially in a deposit. They're
Wow.
burying it in the ground. And so these things that have been offered to God, or these vessels that have been used, they're not taking those and reusing them again. They, in their mind, they're gone. They've been given to God, and then they are buried ceremonially in this deposit. This is where I've been excavating for the past 4 seasons. It's been my area, and this is actually the area of my dissertation. And to our surprise, we also uncovered, so at this point, 7 pieces of gold and 1 piece of silver have been excavated from this area. And so if you think, I mean, the rarity of gold, I mean, there are archaeologists that will tell me, they've excavated their whole life and they've never uncovered like 1 piece of gold, and we've excavated 7 pieces of gold in
Wow.
this very small area. And so it's very obvious that they have been burying these intentionally,
Yeah.
and not only burying them, but not coming back to retrieve them. Like they have been given to God. In their mind, it's gone, it's out of their hands. And so, how does this fit into an early Israelite worship practice? Because we don't read about this necessarily in the sacrificial practice of, say, like Second Temple Judaism.
Right.
We hear about the sacrificing of animals, the atoning sacrifice. But it seems that early in this practice, because again, if we think of the time frame, this is like the Judges period, pre-Judges. Like if you remember, they're doing all kinds of stuff. They're worshiping all sorts of things, and everyone's doing what's right in their own eyes. But I think they're bringing things of value, and they're offering it to God, of immense value. These golden objects, and placing them on the altar. They're being offered to God just like their burnt offerings. and then that's just getting put into this deposit and buried, out of sight, out of mind, no longer in their possession. So it's a pretty cool thing, and it's a very I mean, it surprised us, and particularly the amount of gold that we've uncovered from there has been pretty astonishing.
Yeah, that's a pretty big statement from the guys that you've talked to that said, oh, their whole life and never
Yeah,
even one piece of gold. And you guys with seven, six,
yeah,
seven. That's crazy. That is
yeah. It's pretty
crazy.
wild. Pretty
Yeah, because
wild.
if you would have told me that, I would have been like, okay, yeah, so you found 6 or 7 pieces. But to now get the, truly understand what that means to,
Well, and and then this kind of brings me back to our original conversation, right? I mean, I've been in worship, most of my life. I've been a worship leader, a worship pastor, and one of my goals in my ministry has always been, right, like, remove worship from music. And I know that's a weird statement, right? Most people, they walk into a church and it's like, oh, this is the music portion of the service, right? But trying to change people's perspective on worship, and what it truly is. Sure, music is worship. Music is worship, but
sure.
many other things are worship as well. And our life should be worship. We should be
Yeah.
living a life of worship everywhere we go. And man, I just, again, like, the pinch yourself moment, like, of God weaving my life, right? This, like, modern worship understanding to, okay, I want you to move, go become an archaeologist, and I'm going to put you in the middle of this ancient worship deposit, and so that you can understand these ancient Israelite worship practices, what it
Yeah.
meant to them, and we're seeing the same thing, right? Like this idea of bringing something of worth. And of course, no one, I mean, if you want to bring gold to church on Sunday, we'll receive it. But yeah, this isn't the idea of bringing, something of true value, but, like, what is God worth to you, right? Like,
Yeah.
when people see us, right? When we're living our lives, when we're going to the grocery store and, you know, ha- interacting with our children and, friends, like, do people see that there's a worthiness that you are upholding to your relationship with God? Are you ascribing worth to Him? And so I think this ancient concept of bringing something of value and laying it at the feet and putting it on the altar, not only like from a tithing and bringing some, a first fruits offering, trusting
Right.
God with your your money and your time, but also, like, just bringing something of value because He's worth that.
Mhm.
So
I love that because I was in a conversation not too long ago about heaven, and every pastor's talked about this, like, because so many people think that heaven is just going to be a never-ending church service, and it's like, man, you just like not even enough credit to God. But I
totally.
love that idea of worship because I thought about that. I was like, man, what are we going to be doing? I mean, we can't even understand the width, the depth, the breadth, everything of God. I mean, we just had that conversation with my wife, the four uh, levels of God that he talks about. So worship is going to be just experiencing his goodness and experiencing creation in different ways and, just being in awe over this stuff. And I think about that, being in these dig sites, what an experience of worship too, that you can be in awe in these places that you're discovering and understanding and putting it together and seeing the sunrise and the sunset and knowing that this is what these people were seeing too. Moses standing there and that's a form of worship, when I think about it
Absolutely.
in my head. Giving
Absolutely.
him glory. So wow, that's so cool. That's
Yeah.
so cool. So you mentioned one thing I do want to know. You said that y'all do these 4 weeks out of the year.
Yep.
Why 4 weeks? Is it just a budget thing? Is it just? I mean, what is why?
Yeah, some of it is budget. Yeah, it's expensive to run a dig. A lot of expenses that come along with that, and so, most of the year is spent, fundraising and getting funding for things, making sure we're prepped. The other reason is we have the largest excavation team in all of Israel. And so the past 2 years have been a little bit of an exception because of the war that's been going on. Our volunteers have dropped a little bit just because people are unsure about traveling there, understandably. Um, but when we're having a normal season, we've got 160 to 180 volunteers that are
Wow.
coming throughout those 4 weeks. Maybe 60 people per week that are excavating with us. Um, and so just having volunteers, summer is a good time for that.
Right.
People can take time off, your kids are off of school. Um, and then also a lot of our staff are professors. They work in universities, so they have time off as well.
Yeah.
And then also it's the dry season in Israel,
Ah,
and so yeah, in the winter time the weather's great, but it's really rainy, and so it's
yeah.
hard to excavate in the rain. We do a lot of sifting of our dirt, and so it's just it just makes things twice as long because
Yeah.
you're sifting mud now.
Yeah.
And so just the season is a good time, but also it's just we can consolidate things. Um, as I mentioned, archaeology is a slow process, but if we can get everything condensed into 4 weeks and knock it out and get all of our data and everything done in that period of time, then
Yeah.
we have the rest of the year to process and write reports and publish things. And so it's a year-round process, but
Yeah.
people are sometimes surprised that we only spend 4 weeks digging in the dirt.
No,
Throughout
that
the
makes sense now that you said that too. So, not to put you on the spot, but we're streaming in 63 countries. So I don't know. We don't really know who's listening to us. We laugh about it all the time. We're
yeah,
huge in Germany, and we don't know anyone in Germany. But
cool.
if someone wanted to give to something like this,
Sure.
is there a place that you might tell them to go to?
Yeah. So again, if you go to, well, it'll take you to the same location, but the Associates for Biblical Research, but an easy website is digshiloh.org. So
Okay.
just digshiloh.org, all one word. Um, that'll take you directly to our dig page. You also get
Okay.
information, so like our next the times that we're going, prices. Again, like this is we're a volunteer driven archaeological team.
Yeah.
So Daniel, you don't have to have any experience in archaeology to come dig with me.
Uh-oh.
You could literally sign up today. Registration for next season's already open. You can pick any weeks, and I say 4 weeks, but it's really 6 weeks, because the first week of the dig is a tour. So we do like a tourist tour of the
Yeah.
Holy Land, and I tell people if you want to see the Holy Land, go with an archaeologist. And so like one of our team members will lead the tours. We take you on kind of the off beaten path and kind of the behind the scenes a little bit of some places. um, so you come for that week if you want to, and then dig for a week or dig for 2 weeks,
Yeah.
for as long as you can come. You don't have to come for the whole time. And yeah, we'll train you on the spot. You don't have to know anything.
This sounds like the ultimate, like, become the best husband in the world for my wife.
I would
So I've
agree.
always said that she is, I'm going to have to start changing this because I realize it's not really nice, but that she's just like an archaeological biblical nerd. And that's like, it's in the most loving, passionate way. I
Of
mean,
course.
she loves this stuff. And, you met her, you know her. And after you talked that Sunday, I mean, the way it affects her spirit is
Yeah.
just so cool. So, golly, what a cool thing. I hope some of our listeners out there heard that. So
Yeah. Please.
digshiloh.org. Is that right?
Digshiloh.org. Yeah. Yeah. I can give
Digshiloh.org.
you the link if you want to put it in like the description or
I
something
will.
later.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Man,
there's nothing
so
better, honestly, than like you get back to the hotel and you're digging the Bible out of your ears or blowing it into it's under your fingernails. You're
yeah.
tasting it. And it's a cheaper way to see the Holy Land as well. And if you stay for a couple of weeks, even if you're not on the tour, like on the weekends, our hotel is a 10-minute walk to the Damascus Gate. So, we're tooling
Wow.
around the old city, climbing around ancient sites. And so like you can come and just experience it for a little cheaper than doing
Yeah.
like a full blown like tourist trip where those, you're gonna hit so many places and just see just a little bit here and there. They're awesome. But if you really want to kind of let it get into your bones a bit, come
Yeah.
with us. You'll love it. We'll work
And
you hard.
the food, that's what I loved for
Yeah.
the week or so that we were out there. I think it was 10 days. I mean, the amount of hummus and fresh. I mean, it's a different hummus than we have here. This isn't what Sabarzas or whatever,
Yeah, yeah. Yep.
Sapsula or whatever.
Yeah, the
This
food's
is
amazing. Yep.
oh,
Yep.
so good. Beautiful, even little. I forgot what they call those little. Um, it's not hostels. They call them something else out there. These little places that you can kibbutz. Is that what they
Yep.
are?
Yep.
Yeah, you can stay in and just the experiences. So that's cool. I hope some of our listeners take you
Sure.
up on that. I'm gonna have to start thinking about this for my wife for sure.
Well,
So, all right, well, man, it's so cool. So we've gone through so much, just how you came to know God and what brought you from music to archaeology and that journey there and what it does to your spirit and just everything. So, is there anything else as we round out this session here? And again, thank you so much for being on. And I know this will probably spawn some more things. We'll have you on again. But anything else for our listeners out there that you wanted to share?
yeah, I mean, I guess this is probably more just a reiteration, right? Of so many people we can get lost in a lot of the things that are going on online and the internet, and you've got you've got a scholar from wherever that is showing you and proving to you that the Bible's inaccurate, and that you can believe that the biblical text is accurate. It's a history of the people that are told about in it, and that we don't have a faith that is not rooted in history and truth and proof. And
Right.
so that was really what got me into archaeology. And there's so much information out there, but just be encouraged that again, we don't have a dumb faith. We're not believing something because it was passed down to us from generation to generation. That there's historical evidence of these things that took place.
Yeah, and I love what you said about the challenge currently today is if it's not recorded on our device, if it's not 30 seconds or less. I mean, it's just the interest is getting lost. And I tell my kids all the time, from work to friendships, to do life differently, do life with intention, do life with work, with ethic. And it's the same way in this. We're losing history, and it's getting further and further away from us. And they're like, well, it wasn't in my time, so it doesn't exist. And it's so not true. So again, I'm going to encourage people, whether it be dig Shiloh or something else, to get out there, with your church. I know most churches have something like this. They can go out and visit Israel and the surroundings. Do it. It does something so much to your spirit, to your life, to your faith, that just can't be had sitting in your own home in Katy, Texas, or wherever you live. So I love that. Yeah. Cool. Okay, so before we sign off, I got a couple of questions for you.
All right.
Music buff, brother in music. favorite non-Christian metal band.
Oh goodness. Of all time.
Of all time.
Okay. This is a little bit of a deep cut, I guess, but this
Okay.
also is going to pull a little bit of my nerdiness out. But I think my favorite metal band, and maybe not, they might not even be metal, but Coheed and Cambria.
Oh my gosh!
So
Okay, you're a rare one.
I'm a rare one.
Wow.
Yeah, I just, man, Claudio he's amazing. His guitar skills and the way that he leads, and then of course just like the science, the sci-fi, theme that they've got
Insane.
going through the whole thing is awesome. And but yeah, that's kind of the band that I've held on to for most of my secular music. Life.
Oh, we're joined now even closer because I have mentioned them to so many people and are like, who? And when I introduce them to them, they're like, oh, wow, that's really cool. That's really crazy. But yeah, they are talented.
They are talented. And I always kind of, the higher range vocalist, I kind of always relate a little bit more to.
And I'm an ex-hairdresser, so the lead singer's hair is something
incredible. Absolutely. Yeah.
Love it. All right. So beautiful. Then now favorite Christian band.
Oh gosh. Oh man. Okay. This one might be a little bit more difficult because I'm just stuck in worship so much.
When you step outside the box, what is if you weren't in there in worship and you're just like, I'm going to spin this right now in my car. I gotta get some energy.
I mean, so I tend to go a little bit more, and I hate to say this, like away from like modern or like Christian music, like the KSBJ music, and go a little bit more towards like Memphis May Fire, which aren't necessarily Christian, but it's like they're Christians, but they're not necessarily a Christian band. I mean, Mute Math, I know they're not a Christian band and they're not even a band anymore. They've, been a huge inspiration to me musically. Kind of we're Christians, but kind of then went a little bit more mainstream. So that's kind of my jam is,
I love it.
I'm not really a Chris Tomlin, Skillet kind of a guy. But
I love it. You make our non-churchy podcast perfect.
You know me, man. You know me.
Okay, last question.
Okay.
What's on your current Netflix view that you just are into right now?
Well, my kids, it's not Netflix, but my kids and I are literally going through Star Wars right now. So we just finished The Acolyte. I've been watching Andor. So again, like deep down, I'm just a complete nerd. Your wife and I can probably a biblical archaeology nerd, a sci-fi nerd. And so that's what we've been watching. And I don't watch a ton of TV. My wife and I will watch The Office, kind of on repeat, or Parks and Rec, or I think we're going to pick up, I guess this would be Netflix, Arrested Development. That's our next kind of rotation,
awesome.
kind of wind down TV show. But yeah, I mean, people ask me all the time, like, how do you do all the things you do? I've got a full-time job, and I'm a worship pastor, going through a PhD program, doing archaeology podcasts. I don't have a lot of hobbies. So, I don't go out and play golf and don't watch a whole lot of sports. But definitely listen to music and try to wind down a little bit at night. But yeah,
that's awesome. That's awesome. My podcast host and I were joking one time, just talking about eternity, and it's like there's got to be something here, a hint of eternity in the way God created each of us. Because I'm sure He just didn't create it for it here. It's a part of our soul, our being. Yeah. And we talked about like the things that we're drawn to naturally, and wondered, hopefully one day we'll know. I mean, we will, but will it matter? Like, are these going to roll over into eternity? Yeah. And so you think about things like that, like is Jordan going to be in charge of, the stars and the traveling and going over to these different places? And it's just like the stuff that we love here, is it going to translate to eternity? I don't know. But
I don't either, but I would hope so, right?
Yeah.
He's created us uniquely. We'll have new bodies and new everything, but hopefully our, spirits and experiences and everything will still stay. Just be amplified and glorified. And
yeah, and that's where that new worship comes in ways that we never thought possible. It's going to be so cool.
Heck yeah, man.
So, man, love you, man. I'm so thankful you're here.
Dude,
so
I am too, man.
Again, we're going to have you again, I'm sure. As you get more gigs and things happening, and I get to know you more. This is going to be awesome. So, do you mind if I play this out?
No, please, man. That'd be awesome.
Okay. Heavenly Father, we love you so much, and we thank you just for the opportunity to again hit 63 plus countries as we continue to go out. You do your thing, and especially with this story, thank you for just the opportunity to have Jordan on here to share his findings and the things that you're revealing to this whole crew. And Lord, we just ask in Jesus' name that people would come. I pray that this would grow more to have people a part of your glory, your goodness, and the things that you did to prove just how wonderful, awesome, and current that you are and always have been, never unchanging. We love you. You should pray blessing over Jordan, pray blessing over the digs now and the future digs, and just ask again, awaken your people, bring them to your feet, just to experience you, and mostly experiencing your love and your goodness for them and your chasing of us, all of us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Cool, man. Well, thank you so much again.
My pleasure, man. This is
All
great.
right. Yeah. Well, cool. Well, I'm going to sign out. So we'll see you soon.
Okay, man.
All right, brother.
All
Bye.
right, brother.
Peace.
Bye. Cool. Is that it?